That everyday ingredient sitting in your kitchen doing something to your body nobody ever told you about? It's garlic. Here's what almost nobody knows. The moment you crush a clove of garlic, something starts happening chemically that has nothing to do with flavor. Within minutes of it hitting your system, your blood vessels start behaving measurably differently, not eventually. Not after weeks of eating it regularly. Within minutes. Think about the last time you cooked with garlic. Maybe you minced it into a pasta sauce. Maybe you crushed a clove and tossed it into a pan without thinking twice. Maybe you've eaten it almost every single day of your life and never once wondered what it was actually doing once it left your plate and entered your bloodstream. Most people treat garlic the way they treat salt, background flavor, something you add out of habit, not something powerful. And that's exactly the problem. We've been trained to believe the most powerful things have to come in a bottle, with a label, a dosage chart, and a price tag that makes it feel legitimate. Meanwhile, one of the most chemically active foods on the planet is sitting in a mesh bag on your counter, selling for a few cents a clove. Think about how much money gets spent every year on supplements promising to support healthy circulation, healthy blood pressure, a healthy heart. Pills, powders, capsules with a dosage chart on the back. A meaningful number of them are built around isolating and concentrating compounds your body can already get in their original working form from a bulb you can buy for less than $1. Here's what's actually happening. Garlic contains a compound called alliin, and on its own, sitting inside an intact clove, it doesn't do much of anything. But the second you crush, chop, or chew that clove, you rupture the cell walls and release an enzyme called alliinase, and that enzyme converts alliin into a new compound called allicin, almost instantly. Allicin is the reason garlic smells the way it does the moment you cut into it, and it's also the compound your bloodstream actually responds to. Once allicin and its breakdown products reach your red blood cells, researchers studying this reaction found that garlic's sulfur compounds interact with those cells in a way that triggers the release of hydrogen sulfide, a gas your body uses as a signal to relax and widen blood vessels. If that's catching you off guard, the way it caught me the first time I read into this, take 1 second, hit subscribe, because we're going to keep going deeper into what's actually happening inside your body with the food you already own, not just being told to eat healthy without ever being told why. That hydrogen sulfide signal tells the muscle around your blood vessels to relax, which means the vessel widens and blood moves through it with less resistance. Picture a hose that's been pinched half shut for years without you noticing, and then someone finally releases the pinch. The water doesn't just flow, it flows calmer, with less pressure fighting against the walls of the hose itself. That's roughly what's happening inside your arteries. Have you ever noticed feeling a little sluggish after a big meal, or a bit foggy in the middle of the afternoon for no clear reason? Part of that can come down to exactly this. Blood vessels that are tighter than they need to be, quietly restricting flow to the places asking for oxygen the loudest, your brain included. But allicin isn't finished once it widens your blood vessels. It also affects your platelets, the cells responsible for clumping together to stop bleeding when you're cut. That's a good thing when you're actually injured. It's a problem when it happens inside a vessel that isn't damaged at all, because that unnecessary clumping is exactly the mechanism behind clots and blockages. Multiple studies looking at raw garlic have found it meaningfully reduces how easily platelets stick together, and separately, research reviews on regular garlic consumption have linked it to modest reductions in LDL cholesterol, the kind that contributes to buildup in your arteries over time. Every cell in your body depends on blood reaching it, on time, carrying oxygen it needs to actually function. When that flow is even slightly restricted, everything downstream feels it, even when you can't point to exactly why. Your blood, right now, might be thicker and slower than it needs to be, not from anything dramatic, just from years of never once asking whether the food on your plate was working with your circulation or quietly working against it. Something sitting in a mesh bag on your counter right now can start shifting that, clove by clove, meal by meal. So what do you actually do with this? First, crush or chop your garlic before you eat or cook it. Don't drop a whole clove into a dish and expect the same effect. Whole garlic barely triggers the enzyme reaction that creates allicin in the first place. The compound simply doesn't form the way it should until the cell walls are actually broken. Second, let it rest for about 10 minutes after chopping, before it hits the heat or your plate. That short window gives the enzyme time to fully convert those compounds. Chop it, let it sit on the cutting board, then use it. 10 minutes is genuinely enough. Third, keep the heat gentle and brief, or better yet, skip it entirely and eat it raw. Allicin breaks down fairly quickly under high, sustained heat, so garlic that's been cooked low for 30 seconds at the end of a dish holds on to far more of its benefit than garlic that's been simmering in a sauce for an hour. And fourth, some people specifically eat a crushed clove on an empty stomach in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, the reasoning being that with nothing else in your stomach competing for absorption, more of it reaches your bloodstream intact. It's not the most comfortable habit for everyone. Raw garlic on an empty stomach can be a lot, but if your stomach tolerates it, that's the window some people specifically choose. You're not someone who just adds garlic to a pan out of habit anymore. You're someone who understands there's an actual reaction happening every time you crush that clove, one your bloodstream responds to whether you're paying attention or not. That shift changes how you cook it, when you eat it, and whether you let it just sit there whole, doing basically nothing, or actually give it the 10 minutes it needs to become what it's capable of being. And garlic isn't the only thing in your spice rack quietly doing something you were never told about. There's another one sitting there right now, and what it does once it reaches your bloodstream might surprise you even more than this did.